This is the number one reason why sales is the most hated profession in the world. And I'm going to teach you how to stop being so hated by resisting the temptation to interrupt and resisting the temptation to rent space, get distracted while you're on sales calls. I teach a 4-step framework, a 4R framework, but we are going to jump right to the most impactful step, resist. The resist step of the framework is all about resisting that temptation to interrupt, but really resisting any temptation to take the spotlight off the speaker and put it on yourself. So when people think about active listening, they often just think of it as the absence of talking. But I think that active listening is much more than just not talking, not interrupting. There's a few ways that I see this manifest on sales calls. I think one of the most common ways is by renting space in your head to whatever you're going to say next. So when I'm working with salespeople, I often find that even when they are listening with the goal of responding instead of the goal of listening to understand. So if you are renting space in your head to what you're going to say next, that is not active listening. That is just waiting for your turn to talk. The second way I'm going to ask you to resist is to resist the temptation to assume that you know what your prospect is trying to communicate. And I get why this one is so prevalent, especially on sales conversations, because we hear our prospects share the same problems and the same opportunities and the same pain points over and over again. So when we hear something that we have heard 100 times before, we assume that we know what the answer is or what they're trying to communicate or what that specifically means for them in their job at this particular company. And that's a bad assumption to leap to. And what makes it worse, what makes it even more anti-active listening, is that when you skip over the process of active listening to understand and you miss those opportunities to dig deeper in the conversation.
Welcome, everyone. Oops, we get rid of all these videos here. Welcome, everyone. Together we serve. A little technical difficulties, but you know what? This is live, and I love it. Leslie's amazing. I'm going to bring her on here in a second, but I want you all to think about while you're watching this, either live or in the recording. Are you selling? I'll bet you sold 2 or 3 things today. Your love, your product, a restaurant, to walk the dog. Do you sell the dog? Do you want to walk today? We're selling all the time. This show is called Inside the Mind of Sale Greatness. Do you all want to be great? I know I want to. That's why I was excited about this show, because you can never know enough and never be educated enough about sales, because you're doing it all the time. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're not selling, you're not living. I just made that up. And I think we'll write that down, me and Leslie. So let's bring our guest on today. Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Yes, I agree, though. If you're not selling, you're not living. Today, I sold my husband on the idea that we should take a Uber to the Bulls game tonight instead of take the bus, because it is 24 degrees in Chicago, 24 Fahrenheit.
How far is that ride?
It would probably take about an hour.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah.
On the bus?
No. When you take Uber to the game, how long?
Like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You don't want to take the bus. Yeah. See, that's what I like. That's what sales is to me, finding a better solution. You found a better solution with your husband.
Yes. It's, a real happy wife, happy life scenario there.
Amen on that. I picked that video specifically because me and you really connected when you're on my podcast about listening. It is the most powerful tool for sales, and amongst other things, but we're talking about sales today. Dive into active listening even a little bit more.
Yeah. I love that you picked that clip, because I often say, Steve, that active listening is like the most essential and the most foundational skill for sales as a profession. And of course, when I say the most important skill a seller can master is listening, people are like, well, I can sell ice to, or I can get in an argument with a stop sign. And they always focus on the talking aspects. But I say this a little bit in the clip, like I think what gets missed is that if we are talking at people instead of with people, we're not selling anything because they are not like they don't care. We're not convincing them of anything. And I say in the clip, if you are listening only with the intent of responding, like you're just waiting for your turn to talk, that's not active listening. Like that's just waiting for your turn to talk at somebody instead of really talking with them.
I love that. And I love the point how you make it so simple. Because we all make sales hard because that big, especially me, that big old head on your shoulders affects the sales. So you're telling me, well, I'm going to mirror this back. If I do active listening, even if I do 10, 15%, my sales probabilities go up. How high do you think they go up?
Yeah. Oh, I think that's such a good way to put it. Um, I would say like kind of exponentially because if you think about it, Steve, like when we lose deals in a strictly sales capacity, not like the thing
Yeah.
we're trying to sell our boss or the thing we're trying to sell our partner, but in like a professional sales capacity, when we lose deals, we often think that we've lost them to somebody else, to a competitor. But what the data tells us is that most deals are lost to no decision. People have just decided to stay with the status quo. So if you think that we are losing 52 to 68% of closed lost deals to the decision to do nothing, if we would have listened better so that we could have asked smarter, deeper questions, so that we could have built that path to a mutually beneficial outcome, which is the person getting access to our product or service because we are certain that we know it will help them achieve those outcomes. I mean, I think we could get 50% of those deals, that 50% that we're losing. I think we could get them in closed one.
Yeah, and I agree with you. 2025 has been a year of numbers I've never talked about before. Deals, $100 million deals, $1 billion deals. That I'm 64. I never thought I would talk about, but because I listened, and we'll jump into the relationship side of this. It's changed my life. So and that clip was picked randomly. I kind of looked and said, "Oh, that looks like a good one." The man upstairs is like perfect because I think that's the foundation. If you do active listening, you're going to make some money. How much? Again, there's other components we might get into. But let's talk about the relationship side because that's the next step with active listening. I can actively listen to you and say, "Hey, Leslie, I hear you have this problem with AI. Well, you know what? I'm going to sell you my product. This AI product, oh my God, it's going to change your life. Give me $15,000 and I will change it." You have active listening, but now I stop building. Talk about that relationship because now it's the pitch slap and we don't, none of that stuff anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I think two things just came up for me there, Steve. One, and we talked about this last time. Last time we had a chance to chat live, is that when we deploy active listening, yes, we will win more deals. We will get more closed won outcomes. But if the outcome isn't closed won, that also puts us in a position to just be more helpful, to serve better, to serve more wholeheartedly, because we will have listened closely enough to know that maybe our solution is not the right one, or maybe now is not the right time to buy. So we can refer them to somebody else. We can share a helpful article. We can make an introduction. So there are other ways to help and serve that maybe aren't that closed one outcome that we're looking for in sales. But there's a lot of ways to win besides just revenue wins. So I think that's an important call out. And then the other thing, if we look at the full 4R framework, all four. So the first one is reinforce, which just means, like what you were just doing, the head nods, the eye contact, the mirroring my posture. The second one is resist. So that's what you heard me talk about on the video a little bit, resisting the temptation to judge, to assume that we know what they're talking about, to rent space in our head. And one element in resist is resisting the temptation to help. And I see this so often with sellers. We often have a bad rep of like, oh, sellers just they'll sell you anything at any cost. Like they're just going to shove something down your throat, even if you don't want to buy it. And I actually don't find that that's the case. And I mean, I've audited thousands of sales calls during my career. What I find happens more often is that a seller hears a problem that they can solve and they get excited and they want to help. And so they jump into telling and selling mode. And they're doing it because it's coming from a place of wanting to help, not because they want to apply sales pressure. But because we haven't spent enough time listening, because we have not earned the right to ask those types of questions maybe, or to have that level of trust with our prospect, to them, it just feels like sales pressure and it's a turnoff.
Yeah, and that's it's so powerful what you said, and that's why I love to have you on the podcast and had your. But we got questions flying in here.
Oh,
You
great.
just
Yay.
stoked some people. Where are they? There they are. So here's one that's very interesting to me. They said 250,000 cold calls. What's the top lesson?
Ooh, 250,000 cold calls, top lesson. Two. One is technique and one is mindset. The mindset one is like, it's not about me. And I am somebody that takes things so personally, like I fall in love with the deal. So constantly practicing that mindset of letting rejection go and just remembering that it isn't about me. They aren't rejecting me. I just called about the wrong thing on the wrong day, or they're in the wrong mood, whatever. So one is maybe having that mindset around resilience when it comes to rejection. And the other is technique. The most important part of the cold call is your opener,
Hmm.
because that first 8 seconds, if you capture their attention, will earn you another 30 to 60 seconds, and that's where you can start getting their buy-in to have a full conversation. So if we look at the most current data, the average cold call that does not result in a positive outcome is 52 seconds. An average cold call that results in a next step is 6 minutes. So at all points, we need to think about how can we earn the right to a little bit more time. So make sure that you lock in that first like 8 to 10 seconds by saying something that is relevant to them. So not about you, not about your product, not about company, something that is relevant to them, so that you can earn the right to 60 more seconds and then that full 6 minutes.
So what I'm hearing too, you like cold calls. I mean, that's of course a situation. It's situation to situation. What's your because I get asked that all the time. What do you think about cold calls? I'm not a big fan of them, but I sell something completely different than most people. What's your thoughts on cold calls?
They're an essential part of a B2B outbound strategy. Here's what people get wrong is that they hear me say you should be making cold calls and they're like, well, not everybody answers a phone call. I never said you should only make phone calls. So what I teach all of my clients, and what you hear me bang the drum on LinkedIn, is that you should always be using at least 3 channels for your outreach. So maybe that is a handwritten note. Maybe it's going to events or hosting events. Maybe it's having a podcast or doing live shows and bringing people on as guests. For most of us, it is social media, like a LinkedIn, email, and phone calls, but always 3 channels. And the reason that I'm so adamant about that is because it's giving your prospect an opportunity to engage with you on their channel of choice. So it's not about whether or not I like cold calls. It's understanding that there are still plenty of people out there that want to engage with folks over the phone, that prefer a phone call and prefer to have that type of like commercial conversation over the phone versus email or social media. So you're giving them the option. So it's about giving that channel of choice availability to your prospects.
So simple. I know it's hard because again, the head gets in the way and the mindset and all that. And I work with mentor a lot of entrepreneurs for free and help them out. And some of the stuff on my podcast that you taught me, I've got written here and I help. So I thank you for that, because I believe in sharing resources. When I help with people, like I did with YouTube with you today, I'm sure you're going to share with a couple people. Let's keep doing that. But entrepreneurs tell me all the time, what is the most important thing for sales for me?
What is it for me?
For them, when they say for me,
Oh,
I'm sorry, that was not a good host. I didn't clarify.
I was like, well, revenue? I don't trick
Yeah,
question.
yeah, because they're always,
um,
I want to be better at it.
yeah.
What's that?
Um, Gosh, that's a really good question, Steve. I think maybe I'll go back to doing both a strategy as well as a mindset. We as entrepreneurs, I'm also an entrepreneur, I'm a founder. I think something that can hold us back sometimes is actually our passion for the thing that we are building and the work that we are doing, because our default communication style then tends to be us talking about the thing we're doing because we are so excited about what we're building. and we start talking about ourselves and our services and products and our company before we've earned the right to ask a relative stranger to give a heck. So I think one thing I would share with entrepreneurs is really, really important is like, yes, that passion is incredible. Like, keep that passion and that energy around what you are bringing into the world high. But also remember, just because it's important to you, that doesn't mean that you've earned the right to expect other people to care. And what's going to get you better results is talking about what is relevant to them, which are the problems that are top of mind for them that ultimately you can solve. But if you stay more focused on their problems and what matters and is most relevant to them, you will more quickly earn the right to talk about the things you're excited to share.
AI is a big subject, and we'll get into that in a minute. But sales is such a big topic for everybody because, again, like I said at the beginning, everybody's doing it. And again, the questions keep flying. And this is a really good question. Where is that one? Now I call it transformational, not transactional. They're calling it transactional versus consultative, which to me is transformative and consultative. What truly changes? How do we do that? How do we stay away from the transactional and become more consultative?
I don't think we need to stay away from transactional. Like, there are plenty of business models that should be hugely transactional. Like, you don't need to know my pets' names. You don't need to know personal deal, right? Like, there are plenty of things that people buy that simply do not require a relationship. That doesn't mean they don't require trust, but like, there are plenty of things that you should be able to buy with one simple phone call that doesn't need multiple phone calls or an in-depth process. So I think that transactional selling gets a bit of a bad rep, but when used appropriately, really what we're saying is that we're just removing friction and making it easier for a customer to complete the transaction quickly, to buy what they want quickly. So I don't think it gets a bad rep, but I've also seen, like, I grew up in a very transactional environment, like one call close or like 24-hour sales cycles, and like a 2K price point. So things were moving quickly. What I have seen is that reps often struggle to move out of that more transactional, or I see it a lot with BDRs who are really more in an order taker role. They struggle to transition to a more consultative approach. And the gap is questions. They do not have the skill set to ask questions that are not qualifying questions. So that, I think that's what truly changes when you're moving from a transactional to a consultative approach, is that you become better at asking smart questions that help you identify gaps and help you better match the prospect's needs to the things that you can help them solve for.
You just completely changed me. Because here's why. Because I talk about transformational to transactional, but you're right. That's a B2B when you first meet somebody, transform them first, and then if they're a fit, transactional. But I didn't think about it. As you're talking, I'm going, yeah, I walk into the grocery store. I need red apples or green, whatever I'm buying. I go transact, buy it, go to the clerk, and I pay for it.
Right.
There's
Like, just give me my apples.
Exactly. I'm not trying to transform myself. I got this red apple. I'm 6'8" now from 5'8". This is really cool. Audience, this is a big point. If you listen to the recording, there's times to be transactional and there's times not to be. So that's really powerful. Here's another one. I kind of know this. Cadence design, your simple rule on cadence.
Simple rule. Yeah. So as I said, always make sure that you have at least 3 channels in there so that you are optimizing for channel of choice mentality to give your prospects the greatest opportunity to engage with you on their preferred channel. I still stick by the rule of at least 8 touches across the length of my cadence. And then I would maybe say the final rule is that the more senior somebody is, the longer I stretch out my steps. The more junior somebody is, the closer I stack them together.
So they just sent a message what they were talking about, and I was thinking the same thing when they wrote it. Cadence during the conversation of sales.
Oh.
Do I talk? Yeah, isn't that a cool question? Do I talk
Yeah.
slow? Do I use big words? You know, what cadence is your? I've never had this question before, so I'm kind of excited. What do you think that cadence should be?
Yeah, authenticity always wins. Like, period. So if you are showing up, like I know we talk a lot about like mirroring the prospect's personality, and there's something to that, right? Like if I get on the phone with somebody that's in a great mood, I'm going to be a little bit more laid back, like a little bit more chatty. If I'm calling a, Fortune 250 CFO sat in Manhattan and they are to the point, I'm going to also be a little bit more to the point, right? So it's not that you shouldn't like it's not that you should ignore the cues coming from your prospect, but if you show up to every single one of your calls trying to like mask, trying to put on an act to be the person that you think the prospect wants you to be, it's going to be exhausting. They're going to see through it and it's going to start eroding trust from the get go because you're not transparent about who you are and who you like, how you communicate authentically. So I think the right cadence is a little bit of mirroring to make sure that you're not just, rambling when there's somebody that wants to get to the point, or the opposite. If there's somebody that needs a little bit of chit chat at the beginning of a phone call to feel comfortable, like read the room, but at the end of the day, you need to communicate authentically. And so you have a cadence that is authentic to you. Stick with that. That's going to get you the most wins because you're going to be most confident.
You're a rock star. Absolute rock star.
I just show up to these calls to get compliments.
Yes, exactly. That's why she didn't like me. She's like what I said. I'm really kidding, audience, because you're talking. What I'm hearing from you, the mirror we'll use, is the flow of the person you're talking to, or groups of people. Because I do a lot of pitches. I help companies get investments, and there's times these guys go. The guy asks a question like, "How much are you looking for?" Well, I'm looking for 20 million. And if it's 20 million, like just 20 million, and shut up. And let the investor look and ask more questions. Over talking, I don't know if that's the right word. Over communicating is probably a better word. So we want to try to avoid that.
Yeah. I think over talking is actually the right word in that one, because I think you can over communicate in many situations and it's actually a positive because we sort of as people kind of always under communicate and people love transparency and clear expectations. But in this situation, I think over talking is the right word because what it indicates to the prospect is a lack of confidence. You see it often when people are like, how much does it cost? And instead of being like, oh, okay, well, the cost is 15 grand. Like that's what it costs to bring me on for a sales kickoff. Stop. Yeah. And instead it's like, well, it's 15 grand and it's 15 grand because of this. And it's like negotiable, but 15 grand is what I start. That immediately signals to the prospect that my pricing isn't real and that I don't feel confident that I'm worth the price that I'm asking.
Yeah, confidence is and self-awareness, self-confidence is as important. I get asked this a lot too. So I'm kind of using this show as to help me so I can help my entrepreneurs, is we're human. God made us human. We're fallible. We're going to have good days and bad days. But, they always say, been in sale, I spent $18,000 on a sales guy. He was like, you should sell every call, first call. I'm like, found out it wasn't really true, but I'm not going to get into that. But that person comes into a call, they've had a bad day. Maybe they had to put their dog down or bad news, whatever that may be. Do you have any tips for somebody when they jump into a sales call or a potential sales call, how to handle that emotion?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I volunteer for an organization called Televerde Foundation, and they help incarcerated women build a career path so that when they are no longer incarcerated, they have some of the skills and the acumen to be able to go out and get jobs and be successful in their post incarceration life. And I was on a session with them this week, and one of them asked me that question because they were on a call and somebody really snapped at them, and they're pretty new to sales, and they were very vulnerable in admitting that it kind of shook them. Like it really threw them off their game to have somebody snap at them. And the thing that they said was that their dog died that morning, which is what made me think of it. I was like, ugh. And so here's the advice that I gave her that I would give everybody. At that point, you're not in a sales conversation. Full stop. You're not. You need to immediately pivot it to kindness and to empathy, real, genuine empathy, not like saying the thing you're supposed to say, but really like take a moment and realize how terrible that would feel if you were in that person's shoes and respond with true empathy. And then let them off the hook. Steve, you have a lot on your plate. Like, this does not seem like the appropriate time for a cold call or for a discover, whatever it is. Is it okay if we try again on Friday, or can we reschedule to next week? And here's what happens. About half the time, they say, thank you so much for your understanding. And they leave the call with an extremely positive impression of you, like you've left them with a really good feeling. Or they say, no, 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 no. Thank you so much for offering. But like, I'm here. I got to do work. Let's do the call anyway. And now you have gone into this call with so much trust and rapport built that it would have taken multiple calls to build it. And now, just by being a kind, genuine, empathetic person, you were able to build it in a matter of minutes. But just remember, when somebody shares something like that, like, you're no longer in a sales call until you get their permission to shift back to a sales conversation.
Together we serve. You just served together as 2 people or 10 people together, and you just served them. You just taught us how to serve them. And I teach this all the time too, because we get no's. I mean, how many times have you said no to somebody? I've said no, no, it's not fit for me. I don't have the money, whatever that answer is. That's uncomfortable. I'm very confident. I know you're extremely confident. It's still hard to say no to people if you have any kind of emotion. What I teach is this servant heart mentality is, hey, Leslie, I understand. Okay, it's not fit for you right now. I'll follow up with you. But, during our conversation, I heard something about you need more to meet more people. Well, here's a resource for you. Go over here and do this, this, and this, and it'll help you get more leads for your business. And don't say to come back and buy my product. That's pitching. But just give them more service. I've done that. I've had coaches do that. And they're like, oh my God. The person came back 3 months later and said, I want to work with you now. Because just like what you just said, you left with gratitude. People never, and they may never come back to be your client, but it's good for the universe. It's good for the world. I love that. You're nailing this stuff.
Let me ask you this, Steve, because this has happened to me, and I bet you it's happened to you or maybe folks on the call. Have you ever reacted that way in a call where, maybe they were having a bad day, or maybe as you were just going through discovery, you realized that like you did not have the right product or service for them, and instead you helped, you made, offered to make that introduction, you sent the resource, you sent them somewhere else, and then later you found out that the person that didn't buy from you referred somebody else in that became a customer?
Hundreds of times this year.
Right? Isn't that so
Hundreds of
cool?
times. That's why the servant's heart works, but it's hard. And people listening, it's hard for people to get it because I'm broke. I have debt. I got bills to pay. I'm not saying that's bad because we all have bills. Leslie, you have bills? I have bills.
A few, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I can't see all my plants, but I have quite a plant budget, Steve.
Well, there you go. See, and the husband's got to take care of that, or you got to take care of that. But, it's just serving people just leaves you good. We can't scoreboard it.
Yeah.
And we don't know how, when, or where. I served you. I got you some referrals after our show. Did I make any money off you? I'm very transparent. Absolutely not. But that wasn't my focus. It was to serve you. Here's some things to help. And I asked you to be on this TV show because it would serve my audience, serve me. And we're going to take a break here, but you've got me all fired up because it's such a simple thing to do, like sales. But I'm pointing to my head if you're listening to this, your head gets in the way, like all this noise, and sales has noise. So let's take a break. She's been talking a lot. I want to give her a break, but I'm excited to announce we're going to talk about her book. And imagine having Leslie in your arm all day. Now, her husband wouldn't like that physically, but you can have Leslie and all her tips and resources in a book that you can go to at any time. I'm going to stop there. That was a good tease. We'll be back in about 5-6 minutes. We'll see you all in a minute.
To bulldoze them, to tackle them. So I have a very simple mindset pivot and then a 3-step framework to make sure that you never get ghosted again. The reality is that no buyers want to be on the call with combative sellers. And so the first thing that you need to do is shift your mindset. Next time you hear an objection, I need you to train your brain, maybe your body, to respond to it with gratitude. Now, hear me out. The alternative to hearing an objection is always worse, because if you're not hearing the objection, it means they are hanging up on you. It means they are lying to you. It means they are saying nothing, right? Like it is a tacit ignore of the concern, the question, the objection that they had, which means you're going to get ghosted later and you're never going to know why. That means that when you do hear an objection, it's a net positive. Yes, if you were hearing the same objection over and over and over again, especially if it's on cold calls or like it's always at the exact same time in your pitch, that's an indication to you that there's something going wrong with your talk track that you need to fix. But for the most part, hearing an objection is a gift. It means that your prospect trusts you with that information. So that means that you need to greet that gift of an objection, that gift of their trust, with gratitude. When you do hear those objections, I'm going to teach you a 3-step framework that you can use to respond to them. But I need you to embrace that shift of an attitude to gratitude, because that's going to allow you to greet those objections with curiosity. And curiosity is the first step in the 3-step approach to responding to objections. I teach the 3C objection approach, which is curiosity, conversation, conclusion, because it is a way to approach responding to objections that doesn't require you to read a script like you are a robot. The first step, curiosity, it means that you need to greet that objection with genuine curiosity. If the only thing that you are aiming to do with the objection is still to bulldoze it, you've not fully embraced the idea of responding to objections with gratitude. So like you really do need to care about your prospects and about the problems they're solving and how your product or solution can help them reach those outcomes that they want. So first, you need to be genuinely curious about your prospects, about their needs, their challenges, their opportunities. Number 2, and this is the meat of the 3C objection approach, is conversation. And this is going to be maybe another big mindset shift. What I find is that because the old ways of objection handling are so combative, that we as salespeople think there's only one positive outcome to handling an objection, that there's only one thing that can happen after we hear an objection that means that we've done a good job, and that means that we have tackled it, we have overcome it, we have solved for it. And I'm going to push back on that. Obviously, a best case scenario is that we were able to have a conversation and reach a win-win outcome with our prospect that allows us to move the sales conversation forward. But you and I both know, anybody that's been in sales for more than a few months knows that that is not always how sales calls go after you hear an objection. So you're going to greet the objection with curiosity, and you are going to use a new benchmark of continuing the conversation. So you're going to turn that curiosity into an opportunity to ask one more question. Your new metric of success when you hear objections is that if you can ask one more question that continues the conversation, chalk it up to a win.
Well, I got to tell you, I've stopped it right there. I'm going to close this out. And a quick shout out. I just got a message at the break. Michael, Hounds of Business are watching on LinkedIn. Hello, everybody from the Hounds of Business. We're happy that you're here. I want to bring Leslie on, but I'm going to get her YouTube channel. There are so many videos like this one, mindset, objections. You can watch for free and learn how to handle these. And we're going to get her contact info at the end of this as well. But let's bring her back on. Leslie, how was the break?
It was great. And it's so funny because right before the break, I was like, oh, I should share my 3C objection framework when we come back. It's like the perfect extension of this conversation. And then that's what you shared.
Well, you're a sister from another mother. Yeah. You are a sister from another. So let's jump into it, because I was listening. I went and got some water. I was listening in the background. I'm like, this is brilliant stuff and huge for the audience. So talk about that.
Yeah. So I think the 2 pieces that end up really jumping out at people when I go through the 3C objection handling framework, one is that we should approach objections with an attitude of gratitude, because people are like, absolutely not. Like, I don't want to feel gratitude when I hear a sales objection. Like, I don't want to hear sales objections at all. The reality is that if you're doing sales professionally, you're going to hear objections. And so you should be prepared for that mentally. And I think that if you can adjust your mindset to realize that the alternative of hearing an objection is always worse, right? That means it's silence or a hang up or somebody tells you a tacit lie or maybe an outright lie. So if we are hearing objections, it indicates that we have created that trust, that psychological safety that makes our prospect feel safe being honest with us. I think that's an enormous win. So that's one thing that people mention a lot when they go through this framework with me that really sticks out at them. And the second thing, Steve, is what we were talking about. So it's the 3C framework is curiosity, conversation, and then conclusion, right? Starting with curiosity, like I said, conclusion or conversation is that litmus test that, like, once you get an objection, just try to ask one more question. Don't sell, don't tell, just ask one question. And then conclusion, exactly what we were saying, that yes, an ideal outcome is that you get that next step in the sales conversation, but there are so many ways to win that don't involve getting that next sales step. Many of those involve helping your prospect in the myriad of ways that Steve and I have given you during this call. But also remember that that becomes an opportunity for you to learn. Because if you are hearing the same objection over and over again, maybe you need to better prepare for it, or maybe you need to adjust your pitch to sort of answer in advance. If you're getting cut off at the same exact time over and over again, that's an indication that you have something to learn and you have an opportunity to grow and improve.
I'm not a speechless guy. I'm speechless. I try to figure out. I mean, it couldn't say it any better. Again, shout out to Hounds of Business and Michael, your group. This is awesome. I'm glad you've reached out. Audience, here's the YouTube channel I just added. If you want to connect with her, she's got a number of little videos that you can watch. You know, watch them walking your dog or a podcast. These are gifts. And you know what? Do me a favor. It's Together We Serve. What does that mean? Take these videos and share them with other people that are struggling with sales and put Leslie in front of them. We've got a question here, because guess what the elephant in the room is? What's the elephant in the room with sales?
What's the elephant in the room with sales? I don't know. Is it a trick question?
AI and prospecting.
Oh God.
AI, it's the buzzword. I mean, 2 years ago, AI was, artificial intelligence. Now it's just AI, which is what happens. How does AI fit into all your education?
Yeah. So maybe I want to give an answer that is a sales specific answer, but I know that there's a lot of other entrepreneurs, a lot of other, founders, business owners on this call. So let me share how I am using AI to advance my business, because I think that that's really important. I'm a solopreneur. I'm a solopreneur by choice, and I'm supported by quite a few 1099 partners, freelancers, gig workers. And the sort of rundown that I go through with tasks is it essential for me to do? Or can I use AI to outsource this? Or can I delegate it to somebody else with like a human in the loop AI play? Or does it really need to be me? Right? I think we've all had that, like, how do I spend more time working on the business so I'm not only working in the business question in our minds? I use a lot of Claude. I was using chat. I still use chat sometimes for brainstorming, but I don't find the outputs are as strong. And so I use a piece of AI called Perplexity when I am trying to do deep research, when there's something coming up that I really want to go deep on and understand in a way that just like some summaries, some superficial articles aren't going to give me. And I mostly use Claude projects, and how I'm using those as an entrepreneur is I am doing rigorous prompt engineering and I'm building them into Claude projects. And so examples are like, I give it my book and I have a prompt where it will help me build a slide deck, and it'll tell me what it thinks all of the slides should be, and it'll give me the run through of what the slide deck is. That is something that used to take me 1 to 2 business days to build a new deck from scratch. And now with my prompt, I can probably refine the output and have it ready in an hour and then maybe build the slides in another 2 to 3 hours. So something that took me 2 days now takes me a half day. And so those are the types of use cases as an entrepreneur, where I'm feeding it my own intellectual property. And so it's using my voice, it's using my IP, but I'm expediting my time to value there. So
I did
that's
this.
one part of the answer.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because we talked about a title before the show, and I threw it into ChatGPT, the transcription, your bio, excuse me, and it came up inside of my, and I think it did pretty good. And I love that you refined it. Don't do ChatGPT, Gemini 3, Perplexity, and go, I'm done, and throw it out there. I used to do that, and I completely don't do that anymore. I'm excited because I love your book. I have your book up here in my ever-growing bookshelf, which I'm happy to say, and I hope all of you are doing that. I'm going to put it on the link here, and she's going to pull it up. Let's talk about this book.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It's a great time.
Thank you. And I will say one of my favorite things to use, this is a real inside the mind, a Leslie thing, but one of my favorite things to use ChatGPT for is to come up with like pithy alliterations. I'm a sucker for an alliteration. I just find them so fun and delightful. So I use it for sort of silly things like that to help me brainstorm. The book, oh my gosh, y'all. So I have spent the last 2 years writing this book, Profit Generating Pipeline, a proven formula to earn trust and drive revenue. It debuted in August. It debuted as the #2 USA Today bestselling business book in the country, #4 or #50 overall of all genres. So it's literally like Mel Robbins, Let Them, and then me. Mind blowing. It has been a joy the past few months as people have started reading it, and I'm getting the real feedback of how they are applying the lessons, of what some of the stories I share of my personal failures and what it taught me as a sales leader and as a sales professional, like what that has meant to them, to know that I just didn't always get it right, that I've stumbled and fallen and I've learned and grown. So it's been an absolute just delightful sort of journey to go through the process of bringing it into the world. For folks that might want to think about getting a copy themselves, part one is really about how to build trust with our teams, with our colleagues, with our customers. And then part two is the actual 9-step proven formula for building a profit generating pipeline that I teach with my customers. So it's usually something that I spend a whole year teaching them to do, that they have to pay me tens of thousands of dollars to get access to. And now I've put all that knowledge in the book. You get all of the framework, sample scripts, templates, everything, so that you can feel empowered and able to try to bring that to life in your own business.
It's a beautiful thing. And audience, like I said, she saw the book. There's the chat. I mean, the link to the book. And if you're interested, look her up, look her name up in book. That's how I found it before when people were asking me. I got a personal question. It's going to be a very transparent question. Females in sales, especially sales leadership, is far and in between. You know that. I know that. It's a small percentage. For the women out there that are leaders, especially sales leaders, what's a tip you give them?
Oh, I think find community is a really good one. Like even like LinkedIn didn't really, I mean, it existed when I was a new professional. I'm not that old, but it didn't exist in the way it does now, where it's a true community platform. So I'm part of like women sales experts, women in revenue, women in sales, and having that community of folks where you don't have to first try to explain what it's like to be a woman in sales. You can just kind of jump ahead to get into the meaty work. That's really refreshing. The data right now is that about 35% of sales leaders are women, like, team lead and up. But what's really concerning, Steve, is that only about 9% are C-suite, our chief revenue officers, our chief commercial officers leading the strategy. So it is a bit of a gap in the, like, you need to see it to really think that you can be it. So that is one of the reasons that I think communities are so valuable. And beyond that, I would just say, like, remember that the skills that data unequivocally shows us are most essential to long-term success in sales are skills that women have been more socialized to practice more often. So things like curiosity and empathy and question asking. So in a lot of ways, like the society that we live in has set us up to be extremely successful in sales. So like take that confidence and that knowledge out into the field.
5 to 10 years, women are going to take over business. Sorry, dudes. You guys listening out there. That's why I'm
I think
aligning
there's
with
enough
you.
space for both of us though,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Like I
Thank you.
really,
That's true.
and I know you believe this too, and I know you're just being funny, but like I so deeply believe in an abundance mentality that there is like enough space for all of us. And something that I said often is like a catalyst to get me to start writing the book is that I had this light bulb moment where I realized that like every sales book that I had read, and really like every sales framework I was using and every sales methodology I'd educated myself on was written by a white man for other white men as the persona to sell to white men. And it was this like crazy, crazy light bulb moment. And it was an amazing catalyst for me to want to go out and to write this book and to have the belief that my voice was important and that I should put it into the world. But that doesn't mean that I don't think those books were awesome or that I'm not going to still be inspired by and have my strategies informed by all of these amazing people that came before me. So I think that there's space for all of us. Hopefully, it'll even out more. That's the goal.
That's a
But
great goal. And I appreciate you saying that. And I was half kidding, but I just think because men can be so emotional, women are emotional, but when it comes to business, they just seem to, I'm up and down. And I talk to somebody like you, and I just you settle me down, which I love. And it's great. And it's interesting you say that about the books about men, kind of how what they don't know. But we can learn from that. Like I follow Pablo Escobar and Hitler. People are like, what? I said, there's some lessons there. Very successful guy in the wrong freaking way. But there's lessons of how he built his organization, Pablo Escobar, how he ran his organization. Hitler, he only talked to his 20 generals. That's it. And they sent the message out instead of him trying to handle the whole organization. That's stuff we can learn in business that we can grow with. Just don't do the bad things they did. I was going to put them
yeah,
out
but
there.
if you think about some of the most famous business books, or just yeah, like business books in general, sales books maybe more specifically, a lot of what is being taught can be used for good or evil. So it is
Interesting.
really up to us, the consumer of the knowledge, to decide who we want to be and what type of behavior we want to put into the world and into the interactions with our prospects.
It's beautiful because you're right. Hitler and Pablo Escobar, people are like coming on listening, going, what are you talking about that? But they could have done good stuff. They decided in their mind to do the bad stuff for whatever their reason. And I want to get into that. And I love that you said that. We have the choice. Like the internet could be very good. AI can be very good. Or we got the black web, the dark web, and bad things with AI. So it's so powerful. Another personal question, because now I think you're my sister and I can ask these. I don't know if you are or not, but would you write another book? Because I know it's a journey. It's a
Yeah.
long journey.
Yes. The short
Really?
answer is yes, 100%. Yes. I will either do a book that's more of like a middle of the funnel book. So when we talk about prospecting in SaaS language, we call that top of the funnel or tofu, LOL. And so I'm thinking more like middle of the funnel, very focused on how to prepare for and host a great sales conversation that prospects come away with feeling really listened to, feeling supported, feeling like they're excited to take that mutually beneficial next step. So either that topic or time management for white collar professionals through the lens of like this dopamine seeking behavior that we have because we are so distracted all the time by Slack and by email and by social media and by this false sense of urgency that's so endemic to corporate America. So it's one of those two topics. I've kind of started doing outlines for both to see where I want to go. Hopefully, I'll be able to sell that book So this book I hybrid published. And in order to hybrid publish, it means you pay a publisher to pretty much be a project manager for you. It is a money pit. The brass tacks, full transparency, it's an absolute money pit. So it's amazing that I had the resources to be able to do that and share this knowledge with the world. But like it costs a tremendous amount of money. I will never, ever, ever make my money back on book sales, just to kind of give people a scope of how big of a money pit it is. So hopefully the next book I'll be able to sell, so that enables me to write it more quickly and to share more knowledge with the world. But yeah, you're right. It's a journey. It's a mental journey, but also an emotional journey to put your knowledge down on paper and then share it with the world.
It's powerful, and congratulations. And congratulations on the book coming. And you're absolutely right. There's things we have, what you don't know, now you know, and you can go a different direction. We're coming to the end here. Time flew by. I can't believe it. It's already been 52 minutes, but you were on my podcast, the little dinner improv I do. We're going to do something different, but similar type of improv. So I just went out and I've got Elon Musk's jet. He said, Steve, you can rent it and do whatever you want with it. So I want Leslie to tell me, there's 4 seats in it. I'll be the co-pilot. So I'll be in the co-pilot seat. We'll get a pilot. Who are the 3 people you're going to invite, dead or alive? If you want to bring your husband, we'll have a 5th seat for him. But 3 people that have influenced you in your life. But the bigger question is, on top of that, is where would you fly to? What would be the destination?
Ooh, okay. Well, to be fair, if it was Elon's jet, I would probably light it on fire. But if it was somebody else's jet who I don't deeply despise.
Okay, we'll use Buffett's jet.
Buffett, there we go. Yes. Okay. Yes. I can get on board with that. Him. Come on, Warren. Like you're a genius. That would be a perfect, right? Like he's incredible. Yeah. That's a great person as a first seat. We would probably fly to Tokyo because it's just one of the most spectacular places I've ever been in my entire life. My husband were very lucky we spent a month in Asia for our honeymoon. That was already 8 years ago. We only spent 9 days of it in Tokyo. The rest we spent in Southeast Asia. And I, Steve, still think about that time in Tokyo once a month. Like I loved it. I want to go back. I want to do the rest of the country. So if I have a jet to get a free trip there, because those lay down seats are out of budget for me. We would go there. We would have Warren Buffett on the plane. There's also this woman. I was just thinking about this the other day, that she'd be like really funny to meet in person. Her name's Jamila Al-Jamil, maybe Jamila Jameela, and then last name Jamil. I feel like I'm really butchering the pronunciation of her name. But she's a British actress and activist. And if anybody's watched the show The Good Place with like Ted Danson and Kristen Bell, she's the other lady, like the other main character lady that's so funny. Every time I see her content, I think she's so smart and so funny. And then maybe as my third person, there's an author called Brandon Sanderson who writes a lot of like high fantasy. And I've read, I don't know, maybe 13 of his books in the last like 4 years. And so it would be fun to like he's such a creative mind, and the way his mind works is so much different than the way mine works. It would be just cool to like get to peer behind the curtain of the inner workings of such a creative brain.
Well, Leslie, this is great. What a great trip. Thank you so much for blessing the audience. Everybody, Merry Christmas to Leslie. Give her a Merry Christmas, send her a message. Happy holidays. And everybody, we'll see you all next week, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, for Together We Serve. And I don't know if we can top this show, but we're sure going to try. See you all next week.